Some men buy Teslas when their marriage gets rocky. I check credit card bills. Less fun, more revealing. My name is Grant Halston, and I'm 48 years old with the kind of face that screams middle management and the personality of a tax consultant, which, coincidentally, is exactly what I am. I've spent the last 23 years of my life helping rich people keep their money away from Uncle Sam, and the last 18 of those years married to Elise, a graphic designer who used to laugh at my jokes and now barely looks up from her phone during dinner. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The first real sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday in March. I was sitting in my home office, surrounded by the usual chaos of quarterly reports and coffee-stained spreadsheets, when Elise poked her head through the doorway. "I'm having dinner with an old friend tonight," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Don't wait up." Now, in a normal marriage, this might not raise any red flags. But Elise had been having a lot of these inspiration dinners lately, at least 3 in the past month, and she'd started hiding her phone like it contained nuclear launch codes. "Which old friend?" I asked, looking up from my computer screen. "Cory Lane. You remember him from college, right? He's in town for business." I did remember Cory Lane. 6'2", trust fund baby, the kind of guy who wore boat shoes without socks and thought summer was a verb. He'd been Elise's boyfriend junior year before she met me, the kind of man who made other men feel like they were wearing the wrong cologne and driving the wrong car. "That's nice," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Where are you going?" "Oh, just some place downtown. Nothing fancy." She was already backing out of the doorway. "I'll probably be late." And then she was gone, leaving behind only the faint scent of that expensive perfume she'd started wearing recently, the one that definitely wasn't a birthday gift from me. I went back to my spreadsheets, but the numbers kept blurring together. Something about the whole conversation felt off, like a tax return with too many round numbers. Everything technically added up, but it didn't feel right. Around 9 that evening, curiosity got the better of me. I opened the Find My iPhone app on my tablet, something I'd installed years ago for practical reasons, back when Elise was always losing her phone in restaurant bathrooms and grocery stores. The little blue dot showing Elise's location was pulsing steadily from the Beacon Hill area. Specifically, from a place called the Meridian Lounge, which a quick Google search revealed was definitely not nothing fancy. It was the kind of place that charged $28 for a cocktail and required reservations 3 weeks in advance. But that wasn't the interesting part. The interesting part was the second blue dot on the screen, labeled Miriam's iPhone. Miriam was my assistant at the consulting firm, a sharp-witted 32-year-old who handled my calendar and had an uncanny ability to spot bullshit from 3 time zones away. What were the odds that my wife and my assistant would both be at the same upscale lounge on the same night, having dinner with different people? I grabbed my phone and called Miriam. "Hey, boss," she answered on the second ring. Background noise suggested she was definitely not at home watching Netflix. "Just checking on tomorrow's schedule," I lied smoothly. "Are we still on for the DeWitt meeting at 10? "Absolutely. Though I might be a little tired. I'm out with this guy I've been seeing. Nothing serious, but he insisted on taking me somewhere fancy." "Anyone I know?" There was a pause, a telling pause. "I doubt it. He's in private equity. Real smooth talker, you know the type." I knew the type, and I was starting to suspect I knew the specific individual. "Well, have fun. Don't do anything I wouldn't do." "That leaves me with a lot of options," Miriam laughed. "See you tomorrow, Grant." After I hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, staring at the 2 blue dots on my screen. They were practically on top of each other now. Either Boston had become an incredibly small town, or I was about to become the punchline to a joke I didn't even know was being told. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and settled in to wait. If there's one thing 23 years in tax consulting teaches you, it's patience, and attention to detail, and how to spot patterns that don't quite add up. By the time Elise came home at 11:47 p.m., yes, I checked, I had a pretty good idea of what those patterns were telling me. She slipped into bed quietly, probably thinking I was asleep. Her hair smelled like cigarette smoke, which was interesting since she'd quit smoking 5 years ago. Her lipstick was gone, and there was a small stain on her blouse that looked suspiciously like red wine. "How was dinner?" I asked softly. She jumped like I'd fired a starter pistol. "Oh, I thought you were sleeping. It was fine. Just catching up, you know." What did you talk about?" "Old times, mostly. College stories. Nothing too exciting." I nodded in the darkness. "That's nice. I'm sure Cory had plenty of stories to share." "Yeah, Wait, how did you know his name was Cory?" "You told me earlier, remember, when you said you were having dinner with him." Another pause. Longer this time. "Right, of course. I'm just tired." She rolled over, facing away from me, and within minutes her breathing had settled into the rhythm of sleep, or at least a very convincing imitation of sleep. I lay there for another hour, staring at the ceiling and thinking about blue dots and cigarette smoke and expensive perfume, about the way she'd said Cory's name like she was tasting something sweet. Some men might have confronted her right then, demanded explanations, started a fight at midnight in their suburban bedroom. But I'm a tax consultant. We don't make emotional decisions. We gather evidence. We build cases. We wait for the right moment to strike. And I was just getting started. The next morning, Elise was gone before I woke up. Something about an early client meeting. She left a note on the kitchen counter, written in her careful designer handwriting. "Breakfast meeting with the Henderson account. Back this afternoon. Love you." The "love you" felt like an afterthought, squeezed in at the bottom like a legal disclaimer. I made coffee and toast, and tried to pretend my world wasn't slowly tilting off its axis. Then I drove to the office where Miriam was waiting with my usual Tuesday morning briefing and a knowing look that made my stomach clench. "You look like hell," she said cheerfully, handing me a stack of files. "Late night?" "Something like that. How was your date?" "Interesting." She perched on the edge of my desk, a habit that usually annoyed me but today felt oddly comforting. "Want to hear about it?" "I'm not sure I do." "His name is Cory Lane. Ring any bells?" I set down my coffee cup carefully. "Should it?" "Well, he spent most of the evening talking about his ex-girlfriend from college. Apparently she's married now, but he's convinced she's still carrying a torch for him. Real romantic stuff." "And you believed him?" Miriam shrugged. "He had pictures on his phone. Lots of pictures, recent ones." The room felt like it was getting smaller. "Recent how?" "Like, taken last week recent? Her at some coffee shop, looking all mysterious and beautiful, her getting into a car, her walking out of what looked like a hotel." Miriam's expression softened. "Grant, I'm really sorry." "Don't be sorry yet. We don't know anything for certain. We know enough." She was right, of course, but admitting it out loud felt like signing my own final verdict. "What else did he tell you?" "That he's in town for a few weeks, working on some big acquisition, that he's staying at the Four Seasons, that his wife doesn't understand him." Miriam rolled her eyes. "Real original, right? His wife?" "Alicia Lane. Apparently she's some kind of corporate shark. Handles mergers and acquisitions for tech companies. Cory seemed pretty intimidated by her, actually. I filed that information away for later use." "Anything else?" "He wants to see me again tonight. Same place." Miriam looked at me carefully. "I could find out more, if you want me to." The ethical part of my brain, the part that still remembered marriage vows and trust and the benefit of the doubt, told me to say no, to talk to Elise directly, to handle this like a mature adult. The tax consultant part of my brain told me to gather more evidence. "What would you need from me?" "Nothing illegal, just moral support. and maybe someone to call if things get weird. I thought about it for exactly 30 seconds. Okay, but be careful. And if anything feels off, you get out of there immediately. Deal. Miriam stood up and smoothed her skirt. For what it's worth, Grant, your wife is an idiot if she's throwing away what you two have for a guy like Cory Lane. Thanks, I think. She headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Grant? You might want to check your credit card statements. Just a hunch. After she left, I pulled up our joint account online. The charges from the past month painted an interesting picture. Nordstrom, $347. Sephora, $156. Victoria's Secret, $203. A boutique hotel in Cambridge, $89. Charged on a day when Elise had supposedly been visiting her sister in Connecticut. And then there was last night, the Meridian Lounge, $127. For someone who'd claimed they were going somewhere nothing fancy, Elise had certainly paid fancy prices. I printed everything out and made copies. Old habits from my auditing days. Always document everything, always have backups. Around lunchtime, my phone buzzed with a text from Elise. Running late today, don't wait for dinner, working on something big. The exclamation point felt forced, like she was trying too hard to sound excited about work instead of guilty about whatever she was actually doing. I texted back, no problem. I'll grab something with Terry. Terry Morrison was my best friend and divorce lawyer, though hopefully I wouldn't be needing his professional services anytime soon. We'd known each other since law school, back when I was planning to be a corporate attorney, before I discovered I had a talent for making rich people's tax problems disappear. We met at Murphy's Pub, a dive bar near the courthouse that served decent burgers and didn't ask questions about why two middle-aged men were drinking whiskey at 3 p.m. You look like someone stole your lunch money, Terry said, sliding into the booth across from me. Worse, someone might be stealing my wife. I laid out the whole story, the dinners, the phone hiding, the credit card charges, the coincidental meeting between Miriam and Cory. Terry listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making notes on a napkin. So what do you want to do about it? He asked when I finished. I want to know for sure what's happening, and then I want to decide whether my marriage is worth saving. And if it's not? I thought about that for a moment. Then I want to make sure Elise understands exactly what she's giving up. Terry grinned. It wasn't a nice grin. Now you're talking my language. But Grant, if you're going to go down this road, you need to be smart about it. Document everything. Don't do anything that could bite you in the ass later. I'm a tax consultant, Terry. I document my breakfast cereal. Good. Because if this goes where I think it's going, you're going to need all the ammunition you can get. We spent the next hour planning what Terry called reconnaissance and evidence gathering. It sounded very professional and legal. It also sounded like something that was going to tear my life apart. But as I drove home that evening to an empty house and a note saying Elise would be working late again, I realized my life was already being torn apart. The only question was whether I was going to be a passive victim or an active participant in my own destruction. I chose active participant. That night, I called Alicia Lane. Finding Alicia Lane's phone number took exactly 12 minutes of Google searching and LinkedIn stalking. She worked for Hartwell & Associates, a boutique firm that specialized in hostile takeovers and corporate restructuring, the kind of place that charged $1,000 an hour and earned every penny by making grown CEOs cry. Her assistant answered on the second ring. Ms. Lane's office. This is Grant Halston. I need to speak with Ms. Lane about her husband. I'm sorry. Ms. Lane doesn't take personal calls during business hours. Tell her it's about Cory and the Meridian Lounge. Tell her I think we have something to discuss. There was a pause, then hold music. 30 seconds later, a crisp voice came on the line. This is Alicia Lane. You have 2 minutes. Mrs. Lane, my name is Grant Halston. I believe your husband is having an affair with my wife. Another pause, longer this time. And you're calling me because I think we might be able to help each other. I'm listening. I gave her the abbreviated version, The dinners, the location tracking, the credit card charges. I didn't mention Miriam. That was my ace in the hole. When I finished, Alicia was quiet for nearly a minute. "Mr. Halston, are you free this evening around 7? "I can be." "Good. There's a coffee shop called Grind on Newberry Street. I'll be there in exactly 1 hour. Come alone and bring whatever evidence you have." The line went silent. Grind turned out to be one of those aggressively hip coffee shops where everything was made from reclaimed wood and the baristas looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog for expensive flannel shirts. I spotted Alicia immediately. She was the woman in the corner booth who looked like she could buy and sell the entire establishment without breaking a sweat. She was smaller than I'd expected, maybe 5'5", with short blonde hair and the kind of sharp blue eyes that probably made opposing counsel rethink their career choices. She was wearing a charcoal gray suit that cost more than my car payment and holding a tablet like it was a weapon. "Grant Halston?" She didn't get up or offer to shake hands. "That's me." I slid into the booth across from her. "Thanks for meeting with me. Show me what you have." I pulled out the printed credit card statements and location screenshots. Alicia studied them with the intensity of a surgeon examining X-rays. "This is interesting," she said finally. "But it's not proof of an affair. It's proof that your wife and my husband were in the same place at the same time. What would you consider proof?" Instead of answering, Alicia pulled out her own phone and scrolled through what looked like text messages. "Cory thinks I don't pay attention to his phone," she said conversationally. "He's wrong about that. He's wrong about a lot of things." She turned the screen toward me. The messages were between Cory and someone listed as E. Cory. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Wear the blue dress. E. Grant's working late. We'll have plenty of time. Cory. I've missed you so much. This feels like college again. E. Better than college. We're not kids anymore." The timestamp was from yesterday. "Your wife?" Alicia asked. I nodded, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. "Looks like it. There are more, weeks of them, hotels, restaurants, plans to meet when you're out of town." Alicia's voice was matter-of-fact, like she was discussing quarterly earnings. "Cory has always been careless with his phone. It's one of his many character flaws." "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I want him gone, Mr. Halston. Completely gone. And I think you want the same thing for your wife." She was right. Sitting there in that overpriced coffee shop, looking at evidence of my wife's betrayal spelled out in black and white, I realized that the hurt was already transforming into something harder and more useful. Anger. "What did you have in mind?" I asked. Alicia smiled. It was the kind of smile that probably made corporate boards surrender without a fight. "I'm thinking we give them exactly what they want. A chance to be together, in public, in front of people who matter to them." "I'm listening." "Tomorrow night, Cory is taking your wife to dinner at Chez Laurent. It's a very romantic little place in the Back Bay, very intimate, very expensive." "How do you know that?" "Because I made the reservation myself, using his credit card." Alicia's smile widened. "I also invited a few friends to join them, friends who don't know they're coming." I was beginning to understand why Alicia Lane had a reputation for hostile takeovers. What kind of friends? The kind who talk, the kind who know everyone in Boston's social circles, the kind who can destroy a reputation with a well-placed phone call. She leaned forward. "Your wife works in graphic design, correct? Relies on word of mouth and client recommendations?" "Mostly, yes." "And Cory works in private equity, an industry where reputation is everything and scandal is career suicide." I was starting to see the shape of her plan. "You want to humiliate them. I want to give them a choice. They can end this quietly and go back to their respective marriages, or they can face the consequences of their actions in a very public way. And if they choose the consequences." Alicia's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "Then we make sure those consequences are memorable." We spent the next hour planning what Alicia called an intervention, and what I was starting to think of as the dinner from hell. She had a ruthless attention to detail that reminded me why I'd gone into tax consulting instead of litigation. "One more thing," she said as we prepared to leave. "Do you want to save your marriage?" It was a fair question. And sitting there, thinking about blue dresses and secret text messages and 18 years of shared history, I realized I didn't know the answer. "I want to save my dignity," I said finally. "Good. That's easier." As I drove home, I wondered what I was getting myself into. Alicia Lane was clearly a formidable ally, but she was also the kind of person who probably kept a list of enemies and checked it twice. But then I thought about Elise, probably at home by now, maybe texting with Cory about their plans for tomorrow night, maybe laughing about how clueless her husband was. Maybe it was time for me to become a little less clueless and a little more dangerous. The next evening, I sat in my car across the street from Chez Laurent, watching through the restaurant's large windows as Elise and Cory were seated at a corner table. They looked happy, relaxed, like two people who had nothing to hide and nowhere else they'd rather be. That was about to change. My phone buzzed with a text from Alicia. "Friends arriving in 5 minutes. You ready for this?" I texted back, "Ready." Alicia had chosen her friends carefully. First to arrive was Margaret Whitmore, who wrote the society column for Boston Magazine and had never met a scandal she couldn't turn into a 3-page spread. She was followed by David Chen, a photographer who specialized in candid shots of Boston's elite, and Patricia Vance, who ran the city's most exclusive event planning company and knew every important person within a 50-mile radius. They were seated at tables strategically placed around Elise and Cory, close enough to observe but far enough away to maintain plausible deniability. At exactly 8 o'clock, Alicia walked into the restaurant. She was magnificent. She'd traded her business suit for a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary, and she moved through the restaurant like she owned it. Which, for all I knew, she did. I watched through the window as she approached Elise and Cory's table. Even from across the street, I could see Cory's face go white. The conversation was brief. Alicia said something, Cory responded, and Elise looked back and forth between them like she was watching a tennis match. Then Alicia pulled out a chair and sat down. That was my cue. I crossed the street and walked into Chez Laurent like I belonged there. The hostess started to intercept me, but I smiled and pointed toward the corner table. "I'm joining my wife," I said pleasantly. By the time I reached the table, Elise looked like she was about to throw up. "Grant," she said, her voice pitched slightly too high. "What are you doing here?" "Having dinner with my wife," I said, pulling out the remaining chair, "and her friend Cory, and his wife Alicia." I nodded politely to each of them. "Isn't this nice? Like a double date." Cory had found his voice. "Look, Grant, this isn't what it looks like." "Really?" I interrupted. "Because it looks like my wife is having a romantic dinner with another woman's husband. What does it look like to you?" Alicia placed her phone on the table. The screen was displaying text messages, the same ones she'd shown me the night before. "Perhaps we should discuss what this actually is," she said calmly. For the next 10 minutes, Alicia methodically presented the evidence of their affair. Text messages, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, even a few photos that Cory had been stupid enough to send to Elise. She laid it all out like a prosecutor presenting a case to a jury. Elise tried to interrupt several times, but Alicia simply raised her hand and continued talking. Cory sat in silence, occasionally glancing around the restaurant as if looking for an escape route. "So," Alicia concluded, "the question is, what happens now?" "Now?" Elise found her voice. "Now we go home and talk about this like adults. This is between Grant and me." "I'm afraid it's not that simple," I said. I'd been waiting 18 years to use the tone of voice I'd just discovered, calm, cold, and completely in control. "You see, Elise, when you decided to have an affair, you made it everyone's business." I gestured subtly toward the other tables, where Margaret Whitmore was taking notes and David Chen was adjusting his camera lens. Elise followed my gaze and her face went pale. Grant, you didn't. I didn't do anything. You did. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. Cory finally spoke up. This is insane. Alicia, you can't seriously be okay with this. Oh, but I am. Alicia's smile could have cut glass. You wanted excitement, Cory. You wanted passion. You wanted to feel young again. Well, congratulations. You're about to become the most talked about couple in Boston. She stood up and smoothed her dress. Enjoy your dinner. I've already paid for it. Consider it a going-away present. I stood up as well. Elise, when you're ready to discuss the terms of our divorce, have your lawyer call Terry Morrison. I'm sure you remember him. He's the one who handles all the really messy cases. As Alicia and I walked toward the exit, I heard Elise call my name. I didn't turn around. Outside on the sidewalk, Alicia and I stood for a moment, watching through the window as Elise and Cory sat in stunned silence at their corner table. How do you feel? Alicia asked. Like I just burned down my house, I said, but also like I've been holding my breath for months and can finally exhale. That's normal. The regret comes later, but it doesn't last long. What happens now? Alicia pulled out her phone and showed me a text message. Cory, your things will be on the lawn tomorrow morning. The locks have been changed. My lawyer will be in touch. You work fast, I said. I've been planning this for longer than you might think. Cory isn't the first woman he's cheated with. He's just the last. We walked to our cars in comfortable silence. As I was getting into mine, Alicia called my name. Grant, for what it's worth, I think your wife is going to regret this. Cory's the kind of man who's only interested in women he can't have. Now that he can have her, she'll discover exactly how shallow he really is. And what about you? Any regrets? Alicia considered the question seriously. I regret wasting 15 years on a man who was never worth my time, but I don't regret tonight. Tonight felt like justice. As I drove home to my empty house, I realized she was right. It did feel like justice, but it also felt like the end of everything I'd thought I wanted my life to be. The story broke in Margaret Whitmore's column 3 days later, under the headline, When Private Equity Goes Public, a Boston love triangle explodes at Chez Laurent. She didn't use names. She was too smart for that. But anyone who mattered in Boston would recognize the players. She described a prominent graphic designer, a private equity executive, and a corporate attorney's brilliant revenge. The photos David Chen had taken were artfully cropped to show emotion without revealing identity, but they told the story perfectly. The ripple effects started immediately. Elise called me 17 times on Thursday. I didn't answer. She showed up at my office on Friday, but Miriam intercepted her in the lobby and explained that I was unavailable indefinitely. How did she look? I asked when Miriam reported back. Like someone who just realized she bet everything on the wrong horse, Miriam said. She kept saying it was all a misunderstanding, that the affair didn't mean anything. What did you tell her? I told her that if it didn't mean anything, she probably shouldn't have done it. By the following week, the professional consequences were becoming clear. Elise lost 2 major clients, including DeWitt, who apparently had strong feelings about marital fidelity. Her design studio's phone had stopped ringing, and the few inquiries she did get were from people who wanted gossip more than graphic design. Cory was facing his own problems. Word had gotten around the private equity community, and suddenly, deals he'd been working on for months were falling through. His firm suggested he take a leave of absence until things settled down. Alicia, meanwhile, was thriving. Her reputation as someone you didn't want to cross had only enhanced her standing in the corporate world. She sent me a bottle of very expensive scotch with a note, "To new beginnings." But the real reckoning came on a Tuesday afternoon in late April, when Elise finally cornered me at Murphy's Pub. I was having a quiet drink with Terry, discussing the divorce proceedings, when she walked in looking like she hadn't slept in weeks. "We need to talk," she said, sliding into the booth without being invited. Terry started to get up, but I gestured for him to stay. Anything you want to say to me, you can say in front of Terry. He's going to hear about it anyway. Elise looked around the bar nervously. Grant, this is insane. We can work this out. What happened with Cory? It was a mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake. Which part was the mistake? I asked. Sleeping with him or getting caught? All of it. I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? She didn't have an answer for that. Let me tell you what I think happened, I continued. I think you got bored. I think you decided that 18 years of marriage to a tax consultant wasn't exciting enough for you. I think you wanted to feel young and desired and special, and I think Cory Lane offered you all of that. Grant, I'm not finished. I think you convinced yourself that what I didn't know wouldn't hurt me. I think you told yourself that it was just physical, that it didn't mean anything, that you could have your excitement and your security too. Elise was crying now, but I found I didn't care as much as I thought I would. The problem is, Elise, you're not 22 anymore. And actions have consequences. You can't just take back an affair like it was a bad haircut. So that's it? 18 years and you're just going to throw it all away? I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with in graduate school. But she was also a stranger. Someone who'd been lying to me for months while I made her coffee every morning and asked about her day every evening. I'm not throwing anything away, I said. You already did that. Terry cleared his throat. Elise, I think you should know that Grant is filing for divorce on grounds of adultery. Massachusetts still recognizes that as cause for an at-fault divorce. What does that mean? It means, I said, that you don't get half of everything. It means you don't get alimony. It means you get whatever the court decides someone who destroyed their marriage deserves. Elise stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You're really going to do this? You're going to destroy my life over one mistake? I'm not destroying anything. I'm just making sure everyone knows exactly who destroyed what. She left without another word. Terry and I sat in silence for a while, drinking our beers and watching the evening news on the bar's television. You know, Terry said eventually, I've been practicing divorce law for 20 years, and I've never seen anyone handle an affair quite like you did. Is that good or bad? It's effective. Most people either forgive too quickly or get angry too loudly. You got even. I'm not sure I'm done getting even. Terry raised his eyebrows. What else did you have in mind? I thought about that for a moment. I want her to understand what she gave up. Really understand it. I want her to realize that she traded a good marriage for a few months of excitement with a man who was never going to leave his wife. And how do you plan to accomplish that? I smiled. I have some ideas. 2 months later, I was a different person. Not better or worse, necessarily, but definitely different. I'd lost 15 pounds, bought new clothes, and discovered that I actually enjoyed being single. I'd also discovered that I was very good at revenge. The divorce had gone exactly as Terry predicted. The evidence of Elise's affair was overwhelming, and the judge had no sympathy for someone who'd destroyed their marriage for a moment of weakness that lasted 3 months. Elise got to keep her car and her personal belongings. Everything else, the house, the savings, the retirement accounts, stayed with me. Cory had lasted exactly 6 weeks after the Chez Laurent incident before his wife's lawyers served him with divorce papers. He was now living in a studio apartment in Somerville and working as a freelance consultant, which was a polite way of saying he was unemployed. But I wasn't done yet. The opportunity for the final move came when I learned that Elise and Cory were still together. According to Miriam, who had an impressive network of gossips throughout Boston, they were making it work in a 1-bedroom apartment in Cambridge and planning to start their own design firm. That's when I had my best idea yet. I called DeWitt, Elise's former biggest client. "Grant," he boomed when he answered the phone. "How are you holding up, son?" "I'm doing well, Mr. DeWitt." Actually, I'm calling because I have a business proposition for you. I'm listening. I'm thinking about starting a consulting firm, not just tax work, but full-service business consulting. Financial planning, marketing strategy, client relations. I think there's a real market for that kind of comprehensive service. Interesting. What would you need from me? A client. Someone willing to take a chance on a new firm. Someone whose endorsement would mean something in the business community. DeWitt was quiet for a moment. You know, Grant, I've been thinking about expanding into the New England market. I could use someone who understands both the financial side and the local business culture. I'd be honored to help with that. Good. Let's set up a meeting. And Grant, I'll make sure everyone knows I'm working with you. A man who handles his personal business with as much class as you did is exactly the kind of person I want handling my professional business. The meeting went perfectly. Within a week, I had my first major client and enough referrals to keep me busy for months. Within a month, I had an office in downtown Boston and a waiting list of potential clients. The best part was watching Elise and Cory struggle to get their own business off the ground. Turns out, when you're known as the people who destroyed their marriages for each other, potential clients start to wonder about your judgment and your ethics, and whether they want to be associated with you. Their design firm lasted exactly 4 months. The final blow came in November, when I ran into them at a coffee shop near Harvard Square. They were sitting at a corner table, hunched over a laptop, looking tired and stressed and older than their years. Cory saw me first. He started to get up, probably to leave, but I walked over to their table. Hello, Elise. Cory. They both looked up at me with the expressions of people who'd been caught shoplifting. Grant, Elise said quietly. How are you? I'm excellent, thanks for asking. Business is booming. I just signed 3 new clients this week. I smiled pleasantly. How's your design firm working out? Neither of them answered. Well, I continued, I should let you get back to work. Oh, and Elise? I heard you're looking for freelance projects now. You should call Margaret Whitmore at Boston Magazine. I think she might have some work for you. I walked away before either of them could respond. Outside on the sidewalk, I pulled out my phone and called Alicia. How did it go? She asked. Perfectly. They looked miserable. Good. Misery loves company, but it makes a terrible business plan. What about you? Any regrets? None whatsoever. I'm dating someone new, actually. A federal judge. Very ethical. Very faithful. That sounds perfect for you. It is. And Grant, I heard about your new business. Congratulations. Success really is the best revenge. As I walked back to my office, I thought about that. Success as revenge. It had a nice ring to it. 6 months ago, I'd been a middle-aged tax consultant with a cheating wife and a boring life. Now I was a successful business owner with a growing reputation and unlimited possibilities. Elise had wanted excitement. She'd wanted passion. She'd wanted to feel young and desired and special. Instead, she'd gotten Cory Lane, a failed business, and a reputation that followed her everywhere she went. Sometimes I thought, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting ahead. And I was very, very far ahead.